Hi, I'm Helen Bauer, and this is the Heart of Hospice podcast. The Heart of Hospice podcast is your source for compassionate and informative discussions about hospice and end-of-life care. I'm a certified hospice and palliative care nurse with over 15 years of experience. Whether you're a caregiver, someone with a serious illness, or you simply need to know more about hospice care, this podcast is for you. Join me as we explore all the aspects of hospice, from the details of caregiving to the emotional and spiritual dimensions of end-of-life journeys. For more resources and to connect with me, visit theheartofhospice.com and find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Keep listening for today's episode.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
This episode is being sponsored by Halo Care. Whether you're supporting an aging parent or planning for your own independence, Halo Care empowers you to live confidently at home. From personal care and home safety to meaningful social connection, Halo Care gives you peace of mind knowing someone's always there. Learn more at halocaregroup.com/USA or check the show notes for the link. Halo Care, where technology meets compassion and home feels like home.
Today's guest, Alua Arthur, is a breath of fresh air in the death space, combining compassion and humor and the totality of being human into caring for the dying. My guest, Alua Arthur, is a death doula and the founder of Going with Grace. She describes herself as a recovering attorney. She spent thousands of hours with folks who were contemplating their own mortality. Her TED Talk, Why Thinking About Death Helps You Live a Better Life, has received 1.5 million views. She's also the author of Briefly Perfectly Human, Making an Authentic Life by Getting Real About the End. The book is a powerful and honest, hilarious memoir that speaks to people all around the world about the subject of our own mortality. Alua and I took a deep dive into advanced care planning in this conversation today, looking at our search for a quote-unquote good death and what her ideal for her own death would be. Alua shares how she balances the heaviness of grief and dying with the lightness of humor when she's caring for a client and the client's family. When I ask her what she'd like to change about death care in the U.S., Alua describes a solution that would redefine how we in Western society view, discuss, and approach the end of our lives. You can find Alua at goingwithgrace.com or at aluaarthur.com. Check the show notes for links to those sites. Her book, Briefly Perfectly Human, Making an Authentic Life by Getting Real About the End, is available on the Going with Grace website and at most major booksellers. This is such a lovely conversation. She's just a lovely person. Even if the conversation was about death and dying, you'll want to stay with us all the way to the very end. There's a lot to learn. Alua, welcome to the Heart of Hospice podcast. I'm just so thrilled to have you with me.
I am pretty thrilled to be here. Thank you, Helen.
I wish we were capturing the video because you have this smile that just sort of radiates from you that is so wonderful to sit across from, even on a Zoom call. So thank you so much. It's great to see you to do this.
Thank you. Thank you, Helen. I'll tell you that my dentist would be really happy to hear that. We spent a decent amount of time on it, but one of my early times in the dentist's office, they said, God, I can count all your teeth when you smile.
That's a big smile. It's a generous smile, and I like that. I like
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, I want to ask you an icebreaker question that really doesn't have anything to do with what we're going to talk about today, because there has to be something to talk about beyond end of life and death and supporting those who are dying. So here's your icebreaker question. If you could be queen of the world, who would you have as your three top advisors?
Oh, wow. Queen of the world and my advisors.
So they can be living or dead or imaginary or real.
Wow.
Sky is the limit here.
Oh, it's going to be so boring because these are the people that are immediately coming up for me, and they're people I'm going to go with.
Okay, go.
My husband,
Okay.
my mom,
Ooh, always good choice. Yeah.
definitely my mom. She's just full of wisdom, but also sometimes when she gives me a piece of advice and I really don't like it, it helps also, you know?
Yeah, everybody needs a mom like that.
Yeah, truly. Top three advisors. Oh, the singer Pink.
Oh,
She's never steered me wrong in her lyrics.
I can see that.
Yeah, they're powerful, they're clear, they are sometimes a little left of what you think that they might be. That's what I'm
Yeah.
going to go with today.
She's got a lot of positive strength, positive energy. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Awesome.
and also very clear. It's like a authenticity, focus, clarity, and vision, it
Yeah.
seems. I'll go
And
with
then you
her.
have your mom to keep you from getting the big head.
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. I love it.
Yeah.
That's a good group. That's a good group. Okay. We're going to sort of go back in your history, a little throwback today, a conversation. You were an attorney, you were practicing law, which seems pretty disconnected from the work that you do now. What kind of inner shift did you have way back when that led you to walking alongside people at the end of life?
It was a depression. The inner shift was my mental and emotional health that completely tanked after almost a decade practicing law. So I'd been doing work that it seemed good. It is ultimately good for many people. It just wasn't a fit for me. I'd been working at legal aid, doing domestic violence and community economic development work for low income communities in LA. And while the work was really good, sometimes the law has this way of making us focus on what is legal as opposed to what is just or what is right. And the
Mm.
practice of law means focusing on the small fact that is legal and working toward that as opposed to what is just or right. When a client would come in weeping about what had been happening in her relationship with her children and needed a restraining order, I had a short amount of time to get a story down on paper, check off a lot of boxes, have her sign a bunch of things, make the appropriate copies, and send it off to get filed. Whereas what I wanted to do was sit and talk to her about the cycles of violence and how she'd gotten here and what is the plan moving forward and how are we going to do this? It didn't allow for enough stickiness or stretchiness in the relationship. It didn't allow for us to do the right thing a lot of times. We just had to do the legal thing. And I was living a completely inauthentic life. I shoved down my sensitivity and my curiosity about humans in favor of fitting in this tiny little legal box with my gray pinstripe skirt suits. It just was not working for me. And depression bloomed. Big depression bloomed. Uh, and while I wasn't necessarily considering the end of my life, I I was so depressed that I didn't want to live that way anymore. And I just didn't know my way out of it.
What lessons do you think you learned? Because I see a lot of parallels to what we do in end of life care. At least those of us who are at the bedside working in hospice, inside the hospice industry. Yes.
That's why I'm a death doula.
Yes, yes, you get away from some of the box checking. What were some of the lessons from your legal career that you see that might have prepared you for the doula work that you're doing now?
Oh, there's so much of it. The curiosity, for starters. When somebody came in, there'd be a set of facts that I needed to learn about them in order to figure out how to proceed. And in end of life work, it's a lot more spacious, but I lead with the same curiosity about who they are and their circumstances. Um, One skill that I learned in law school and really worked on in the practice of law is this thing called issue spotting, where you're given a set of facts and you're basically to see all the holes in those facts to try to figure out what additional information you may need or what rules may apply based on the set of facts that you have. And that works so well in death care, like incredible. Because when I walk in and I'm meeting a client and I'm talking to them and they're telling me a story or they're telling me about what they need, I can hear what they're not saying and know that that's the place that we need to go. It often reveals some additional support that they may need or maybe an area in their life that they haven't yet paid attention to, or on the more practical level, some additional, like just practical work that needs to be done. So that's one thing that has been really, really helpful. I think people often assume that I use my legal degree a lot in death care, particularly when helping clients wrap up affairs at the end of their lives. And I don't think I do. I think I more use the skills that I learned in law school to support in getting that done. Because you don't have to be a lawyer to help somebody get really clear on what they want to do with their possessions. It just helps to have the additional knowledge.
So I guess maybe the legal stuff comes in handy as back knowledge, foundational stuff when you're having advanced care planning conversations with your clients, because that's a huge part of what you do as a doula.
Yeah.
What do you find is your best starting point? And I think this is such an important question because so many people struggle with just how to get the conversation started. What's your favorite starting point for having advanced care plan conversation with somebody with a serious illness?
Wow. It depends on their level of comfort with talking about their death. Because if I'm sensing that they have a decent amount of comfort with it, the first place we're going to is what would be the most ideal death for you.
Oh, you go straight to it. Nice.
Depending on their level of comfort. What would be the most ideal? What would be the best that we can hope for? If we're already here, if this is what we're looking at, what could we do to make this as easy, as simple, feel as rich as possible for you? And that is a good starting point to start having the conversations about, care and comfort. It also opens up doorways to talk about who's present, who isn't, what still needs attention in their relationships, perhaps also trying to figure out what they already have done, because that is helpful to know if they already have documents created. You might not be surprised about the number of times I see like multiple completely discordant advanced care plans.
Oh, that would not surprise me at all.
All the time. All the
Right.
time. Yeah. And so sometimes it also means, all right, let's back up. If this is what you want, the one you most recently filled out doesn't look like it. So what do we need to do in order to get us a little closer to what you're saying today with what you said 3 months ago or 6 months ago or whatever else? Yeah.
Right, right. Well, the one and done never works well for advanced directives, for advanced care planning.
Never.
No.
I always remind all the death doula students that when they are supporting people and completing end of life plans, it's meant to be a document that grows with you. It's meant to be a document that lives with you. Like you just fill it out today, but look at it every time there's a major life change. Look at it when you have kids or when a kid graduates or you move house or you have a birthday. So fun to look at your end of life plan when it's your birthday. Or, I mean, a certain kind of fun. When a parent dies or a spouse dies or you get divorced or just keep coming back to the document. So it's living and growing with you as you do.
It's interesting that you say when a parent dies, because that's not really a shift in possibly your decision maker if you're a grown adult or you're a married adult. But I think those are inflection points that sort of bring the reflection to mind. I know that some of my best advanced care planning has been done in the car on the way home from a funeral. My husband would probably disagree with that because he's usually the one trapped in the car with me. But when you see things like that, you experience a loss, like the loss of a parent, it makes you realize, yes, I want a piece of my death to look like that, or I would never want that. That's not a choice I would ever make.
100%. That's why I find it to be a really important inflection point for considering your end of life plans. My father-in-law died recently, and I've gotten so much more grit, so much more into the nitty-gritty of what my husband wants after he dies, after his father's death, because it's just opened up space for us to say, I do, please, under no circumstances should that be done to me. And I'm like, all right, great. So now we have a little bit more texture here. We know what we're working
Yeah.
with here.
Yeah. Being able to experience something like that does open the door a little bit more for those conversations that are typically really hard, come out of the blue. Hey, on Saturday night, why don't we sit down and talk about plans for your funeral? Not exactly a date night activity for a weekend.
Well, unless you're my husband or anybody I've dated in the past, it's very much a date night activity. God, I'm so annoying.
Oh, I love it. My husband is a very quiet man and he doesn't work in end of life care at all. And so I will pour out all of this. I don't want this, do this. This is who I want with me. And he said, you're going to have to write that down. I'm not going to remember any of it.
Thank you. Good job, husband.
Yeah, there's a part of me that wants to hurt him because I want him to, to dig in. But I think it's important for anybody listening who works in any capacity in end of life care. If you are companioning, caring for anybody who's got a serious illness, is not everybody wants to hold that information so closely.
Right. And also when they're in the middle of this like horrifying thing that's happening, you're approaching the end of your life, it'd be much easier just to look at a document than to try to rely on memory or
Yeah.
that conversation that we had however many years ago. If it's written down, everybody can see it. I can see it. In my emotional state, I don't have to rely on anything other than what you said.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
it helps.
an easier lift.
It
I
helps.
agree. Yeah.
Helps a lot.
Yeah, I have trouble remembering what's on my grocery list, just going in the grocery store. So, yeah, trying to remember what my advanced care plan was or what my mom's advanced care plan was. Yeah. So, we're talking about creating space for a death that is desirable. Basically, what the term is that we use typically is a good death, quote unquote. Yeah, it's not my favorite term because I think we have a tendency as the people who provide the care to walk in and say, I know what your good death should look like. I know what a good death looks like. And of course, a good death can look a million different ways. What does a good death mean to you?
For me,
Yes, for you personally.
a good death for me personally would be one, well, I'll give you the nitty gritty, then I'll give you the theoretical, would be one where I am outside. I can feel a little bit of a breeze. I'm not cold. I can see the sky. I can watch the sky change. I can just be with the natural elements because I really love this natural world that we live in, where my people are nearby. They're not talking to me. They're not looking at me, watching me as I die, but rather they're just nearby, where I can be in surrender, where I can feel at rest in my body, where there's not a lot of beeping or fluorescent lighting or anything like that, but where I can go easy. That's the nitty gritty. Theoretically, a good death to me would be one where I have some knowledge and awareness that it's coming so I can prepare. I'm not in any pain, so my bodily needs have been taken care of. Where my affairs are already in order, so everybody knows what to do, so that they're not stressing out about what to do with my 10,000 rings and necklaces and bits of jewelry after I die, because that's going to stress them out. Um, it's one where things feel tidy. That to me would be a good death to me. I've been in my work, been veering away from the idea of the good death because I think that sometimes it places a value judgment on how somebody died as opposed to just allowing death to be what it is. Because I hear so many people say to me, she got a bad death or she didn't get a good death. And it breaks my heart, all the ancillary death trauma that occurs as a result of people judging how somebody else died.
Right.
What I have been trying to aim for, and certainly what I teach in the doula training programs, is the most ideal death under the circumstances. So, with the
Mm,
circumstances that we're currently dealt, what is the most ideal? And how do we get closer to that? Because a good death for somebody might be 86, but here they are with colorectal cancer at 44, you know? Shoot.
right.
How do we reconcile those two things? So, with the circumstances that we've got, how do we get the most ideal?
You know, I hear you describing this expectancy about what you would want to be outside, for all things to be tidy, the completion of the tasks.
So
And
tidy.
yeah, I'm the same way. So there's not some big panic scramble at the end. But for a lot of people, that's like asking the planets to align.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially when you start thinking about family relationships and family dynamics. I want all my people to stand there and be peaceful and accepting and getting along with each other. Good luck with that.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And for now, while I don't know what it is that I'm going to be dying of, and I'm not currently faced with it, it's my North Star. It's
Right.
what I'm working toward. And so when people don't yet know what they're going to be dying of and we're doing some planning, I want them to idealize for a while because it gives us something to work toward in our planning. Because otherwise, I feel like people tend to catastrophize or they work with, the what ifs. They jump into all the what ifs. So what if I this? What if I that? What if I have half a foot? Like what if? And if we can just say, let's go for the best case scenario, that allows us to have a plan that is more aligned with their values today. And those values change as we get older, but let's get as close as possible while we can right now.
Yeah. And you can't possibly imagine all the what ifs. It's not,
No,
no, it's,
impossible.
oh my gosh, no. That's like saying I want to die at home with my family. What if circumstances dictate, or your status, your condition dictates that you need to be where there's 24/7 nursing?
Yeah.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
if it is destined that you will die in the hospital? And
Yeah.
so many Americans don't want to die in the hospital, and yet they do.
Right.
And there are a lot of different reasons for that. I love the way you're approaching the idea of the good death. I think as hospice workers, as a hospice nurse, we have sort of a prescribed, it's a template that the patient dies peacefully at home with all the symptoms controlled, the family at the bedside grieving appropriately, whatever that happens to mean. But that's what we have decided a good death should be for a patient. When in reality, for a lot of people, they don't want to ride the pink elephant.
Mm-hmm.
They want to experience every bit of consciousness that they might have, whether it's cultural or based on their relationship with pharmaceuticals, all the different reasons that people might do that. But I think approaching it that way, looking at the big expectation, what is the ideal, and then setting some foundational things that could be realistic.
Yeah. Considering the circumstances. Let's look at
Right.
where we're at right now. How do we navigate this to get us the closest right now? Yeah. That seems to be a standard that is still hard, but allows some spaciousness so that we don't have to be so strict, and we also don't have to have like a set number of principles that we apply to everybody, regardless of the circumstances that they're in.
Well, and it seems like a rating system. Okay, so this death wasn't so great. Yeah, 7 out of 10.
Who's judging?
Yeah, who gets to decide?
Who gets to decide? And is it a good death for whom? Is it for the person who died or the people that are left behind? Was it for the doctors and the medical care team? Was it for the doulas? Like, who is a good death actually for?
Right.
Who's giving out the scorecards? It's like the Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to raise my card and let you know, that was an 8 out of 10. Not so great. Patient had a little bit of agitation there towards the end that we shouldn't have let happen.
Right. It's
Yeah.
tough. It's tough.
And isn't the definition of a good death or an acceptable death different from family member to family member? Would you say that's true?
I think it's human to human. It differs for all of us. I don't, for a long time I was like, oh, and people want to die when they're old in the bed. And somebody said, I want to get hit by a bus when I'm at my peak. And I said, oh, yeah, actually, also. Also,
I'd have
that
to
to
pass
them,
on the bus part. I have to tell you.
me too,
Yeah.
majorly. And then I dated this guy who said his good death. See, I told you I do this on date night. Who told me that his ideal death, his best death, his good death would be to jump in front of somebody and take a bullet in a very public place to save the life of somebody.
Oh, wow. So that had meaning.
A lot of meaning, a lot of martyrdom. We did not keep dating much longer.
That is pretty intense, I have to say.
Yeah, it's a good death for him.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, part of what I'm up to with my work is giving us enough space so that individuals can be individuals in their dying as well. So that I have the right to decide, to be clear about what I want, how I want to do it, how I want to live, what clothes I want to wear, who I want to love, how I want to love them, what food I want to eat, how I showed up in this world, all the way through to the very end. And that includes how I define what my good death is, what my death could look like.
Well, and isn't that what advanced care planning is for? It's not just about those forms, the legal forms that we're checking off, the directive, the medical power of attorney, the DNR. It's not just about those conversations. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about doulas is they are the ones that are sitting at the bedside. They have the space, they have the time, they have the skills, and they're listening and asking beyond these forms, what is the best death that you could envision for yourself? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. I'm also looking at like very big picture, right? So we start with the medical directives, but then moving beyond the advanced directive, let's also look at comfort and care. Let's look at the sensory details, what might be working in the space, what's going to feel really good there. Who do you want there? Who do you absolutely not want there, even though they think that they should be there, Let's talk about religion. Let's talk about spirituality. Let's consider your body and your services. What do you want done? How are we going to care for your body after you die? How do you want your life celebrated, honored, or not? Let's look at your dependents. Let's look at, aside from just determining very clearly who a guardian would be, let's also consider what are some of the hopes and wishes you had for this child? What rituals did you partake in? What's important to know in caring for your child after they die? Or not just your child, but also any disabled adults that are in your care or pets that are in your care, because people always forget about the cats and the gerbils. Let's also think about your possessions beyond what goes in a will, but also your sentimental items, the things that you care about. Let's think about your important biographical information and details. Let's get all those together. Let's look at your life review in a whole. Let's look at the big picture of your life, what you had gratitude for, the places that your life took a left, what happened to you in the different decades, like who you loved, who broke your heart. Let's think about your relationships, who you loved, how you loved them. Who do you need to say I'm sorry to? Who do you need to thank? Let's look at this part I really enjoy, but what the magic that you felt in being alive, like what brought you just thick joy while you were still living. I think all that is really helpful in appropriately planning for the end of life. The forms, those are important, but let's look at the life big picture, all of it as a whole.
I am loving this conversation, but we're going to take a break right now. There's more to come.
This episode is being sponsored by Halo Care. Caring for a loved one at home can be both rewarding and overwhelming. At Halo Care, we're here to help you find the balance, combining technology and heartfelt support so aging at home feels safer, easier, and more connected. Our 24/7 Care Hub team is always just a call away, keeping families informed and seniors supported around the clock. From personal care and home safety to meaningful social connection, Halo Care gives you peace of mind knowing someone's always there. Whether you're supporting an aging parent or planning for your own independence, Halo Care empowers you to live confidently at home, surrounded by care that's compassionate, human, and truly personalized. Learn more at halocaregroup.com/USA or check the show notes for the link. Halo Care, where technology meets compassion and home feels like home.
So I hear you when you've spoken the your TED Talk, your Indwell talk, you incorporate a lot of humor into the work that you do, which is amazing and refreshing, and it keeps things light. So how do you find ways, how do you balance the heaviness of this work? Because it is work, there's labor to it, to accompany the dying at such a time. How do you balance that, and still keep a respectful attitude towards the heaviness of what's going on? How do you balance the humor with this?
I think part of the challenge is that so many folks come into this work just really hell-bent on the soft, gentle voice and the carefully chosen language and words. And I've found when I enter into a space where dying is occurring, the people there are not doing that. They are being people. They are cursing. They may be watching something and laugh. They may be irreverent. We are honoring the totality of life as it's ending. And I think that we should bring the totality of life into the ending too.
Yes.
And for me, that means bright colors and my deep voice that sometimes talks way too fast and my curse words and sometimes jokes. Don't get me wrong. I'm not in there cracking jokes when everybody else is sullen and somber. I'm likely feeling it too. But when somebody makes an irreverent joke, I laugh pretty loud and can meet them with it because we're honoring life and death, and all of life has to be present. And so I show up as myself. Myself makes jokes, you know. Myself, I cry as hard as I laugh. Sometimes I'm doing both at the same time. And I'm meeting people where they are, which sometimes I feel like we shortchange them when we only show up with the very, very soft words and the gentle walking. It's not like that, you know? There's also anger and there are dogs barking. Sometimes there's children there and there is pain and there is sadness. But there's also some ridiculously hilarious things that happen approaching the end of life, and they are laughing about it. And so I will laugh too.
So when you think about the whole person, the total person, mind, body, spirit, this is a person who's laughed and danced and done all these things. You don't stop being a person just because you get towards the end of your life. All of those things are still present. It's the both and. You can have all of those things. And what a release valve for a family who has had their inside jokes. They danced in the kitchen while they cooked and got underfoot and mom chased them out, things like that. Why shouldn't that still happen? It's the nature of a human life.
Yep.
I think
And
that's wonderful.
the life is dying, like the totality of it, you know? I mean, there was one client, I don't remember what he said now, but I almost spit my drink across the room. I laughed so hard. And it just reminded me, like, dying people are living too. They're not dead yet. And they were all the things. So let them be all the things. They'll be all the things with them. It is heavy. It can be really, really sad, but it can also be hilarious. And it can be angry, and it can be reverent, and it can be thick, and it can be confusing, and all those things, just like human can be.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for being able to read the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when I first started in hospice nursing, I was approach with a quiet, calm voice,
Yes.
and the TV should be off.
Yes.
And then I walk into these raucous homes where there are 6 dogs running around and there's a kid on the bed and the TV's on all the time. And you have to understand this is the life. You are coming into and being immersed into someone else's life experience as they die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not separate then. It's a part of. It's definitely part of. I mean, I walked into one dying space where they were like drinking whiskey and playing cards on the table. And while I think it was their friend, from college. Their buddy was dying on the bed, and that's what he'd wanted. And they were making jokes, and they'd yell over at him occasionally. Whether or not he could hear them, nobody knows. But everybody was present.
Yeah. And he was part of it.
He was a part of it.
Yeah. I love that. So I want to touch on your activism. I heard an interview that you did, a podcast that you did, where you described activism as something that lives inside your bones. It's such a part of who you are. What is the one thing that you would like to completely overturn about death care here in the U.S.?
We don't have the time, girl.
Yeah, you only get one. You only get one. Make it big.
That I totally want to overturn about death care here in the U.S. I think it would be how cordoned off it is in society. I want death care to be integrated in and through how we do care.
Yeah.
All the way through. I would also love it if we could change. Oh, this is my second one. If we could change the vast disparity in how different races and gender expressions receive pain, medication, and care at the end of life, I would change that in a heartbeat.
Yes.
That's my second one.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
But if we're instituting death care in all parts of society, that means that the second one will also happen naturally.
You would hope so. Yes.
Yeah.
But I would love to see that, the questions that they ask when you go into a doctor at my age, I'm 60, and they ask, do you have an advance directive? What if somebody had asked me that when I was 24?
Yeah.
And had a conversation with me about that?
A real conversation, not just here's a form, check yes or no.
Right. Do you have one?
Yeah.
More than that. Yeah. Before my mother had dementia, before my mother had colon cancer, not just what my family risk is, but what do I think about this? Do I have a plan of any sort? Yeah. What if we asked younger people these things and actually had conversations?
That would be amazing.
It would turn it upside down.
What if we had doulas in HR systems? What if we had doulas in the military? What if we had doulas in schools? What if we had doulas like at every point in society? Because dying is happening in all of those places. We just shove it off to the side and give 2 days vacation time for it. And then you're supposed to come back to work and like nothing happened. What if we honored it, big picture, everywhere, across the board? That would make a big difference.
Yeah, it would. It would. Okay, so to close, here's my question for you, because advanced care planning, we've talked a lot about it today, and I know it's near and dear for both of us. What's the most unique thing in your own end-of-life plan? Do you have anything that's way out?
Well, people are often surprised when I say I want my people to clap when I'm done, when they see that I've died. I don't find it to be so way out there, and it feels less about them clapping for me and more just that I did it.
Like, well done.
Well done. You did it, girl. Because so often it's like, no, the worst has happened. And for me, maybe it'll be the time where it's like, yes, good job, honey. Yeah, done, did it.
I like it. I like it. How can listeners find Going with Grace and your book? How can they connect with you?
They can find us anywhere, really. You can find us on the internet at goingwithgrace.com. We're on Instagram at going_with_grace. If you don't add the underscores, you'll end up at like a yellow lab in somewhere in Kansas or something. I don't know how that happened. My book is also on the internet. I think you can find it on all major outlets and retailers, but also my website, aluaarthur.com. And yeah, I'm just out there in the streets doing my thing.
Alua, thank you for doing your thing. Thank you for being out there doing your thing. I'm so thrilled to have you on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure for me as well. Thank you, Helen.
Thanks for listening to the Heart of Hospice podcast. Check out our sponsor in the show notes, and please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. We would appreciate it if you would share this episode with your friends and family and anyone who needs to know more about hospice. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, no matter who you are or where you are in your hospice journey, you are the heart of hospice.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.